Ambassador Lorax smoothed down his ceremonial robes for the 14th time. First contact with a new species was always stressful, but humans had quite the reputation across the galaxy. Their signals had been intercepted for decades: wars, reality television, and something called cat videos. The High Council had debated for years whether to even bother. Landing sequence initiated, Ambassador chirped his pilot, Maisie. Earth's delegation awaits at the designated coordinates. Lorax fluttered his neck gills nervously. Remember the briefing. These humans can be unpredictable, but they've achieved remarkable technological progress considering their short evolutionary history. The shuttle touched down with barely a tremor. Lorax took a deep breath of filtered air before the ramp extended. He'd studied their languages, customs, and diplomatic protocols extensively. Nothing could surprise him now. How wrong he was. The human delegation stood smiling, 5 of them in formal attire. But beside them, great galaxies, was a massive fanged beast with alert ears and a lolling tongue. Lorax froze mid-stride. Ambassador Bendari. "Welcome to Earth," called out the lead human, a woman with copper-colored hair. "I'm Secretary Parker, United Nations representative." The beast moved. Lorax stumbled backward, tripping on his robes. "Watch out, predator," he shrieked in the human language. Security Protocol 7. His guards deployed instantly, protective shields humming to life. The humans looked confused, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "Ambassador, is something wrong?" Secretary Parker asked, her smile faltering. "The beast. Why have you brought a wild predator to a diplomatic meeting? Is this some kind of threat display?" Lorax demanded, his translator unit struggling to convey his panic. Parker's face registered bewilderment before understanding dawned. She placed a calming hand on the beast's head. "Oh, you mean Max? He's just my dog. My pet." "Pet?" The translator struggled with the concept. "You mean captive?" No, companion animal. Friend," Parker explained, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "He's completely tame, Ambassador. Domesticated. His ancestors were wolves, but dogs have lived alongside humans for over 15,000 years. Lorax's third heart nearly stopped. "You've been keeping apex predators as companions for 15 millennia? The delegation exchanged glances. The beast, Max, wagged its tail and made a friendly woof sound. "Perhaps," suggested Parker carefully, "we should continue this discussion indoors. I promise Max is perfectly safe. In fact, most Earth homes have animals living in them. Cats, dogs, birds." "Multiple species?" Lorax whispered, horrified. "You collect predators?" "We don't collect them exactly." Lorax composed himself with great effort. First contact was too important to abandon, regardless of how terrifying these humans might be. "Very well," he said stiffly. "I will learn about these pets of yours. But please restrain that creature during our discussions." Max chose that moment to flop onto his back, tongue lolling sideways, clearly requesting a belly rub. Humans, Lorax decided, were far more complex and disturbing than anyone had anticipated. "They keep what in their living quarters?" Grand Counselor Mev Tara's eye stalks stretched to their full height, a sign of extreme alarm among the Zintari species. Ambassador Lorax Bendari stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session, his report causing ripples of murmurs across the chamber's various species. Predators, Counselor. Not just one kind, but dozens. Canines with razor teeth, felines with retractable claws, even scaled reptiles that constrict their prey. They call them pets and treat them like family members. A cacophony of shocked exclamations echoed through the grand hall. "Order. We will have order." The council leader's voice boomed. "This requires further investigation. We cannot base interstellar relations on one diplomat's encounter, no matter how disturbing. That's how Dr. Pella Nix found herself aboard a research vessel bound for Earth 3 cycles later. As the Confederation's leading xenobiologist, she had studied countless species, but never one that deliberately surrounded itself with predators. "This defies evolutionary logic," she muttered, reviewing Lorax's report. "Prey species don't invite predators into their nests. It's suicidal." Her first week on Earth proved even more baffling than expected. The human assigned as her guide, Theo Washington, took her to something called an animal shelter. "People adopt unwanted animals here," he explained cheerfully, seemingly oblivious to the existential horror his statement provoked in Pella. She watched, both fascinated and appalled, as humans cooed at caged predators, selecting them based on criteria like fluffiness and personality. "That one's eyes are assessing your weaknesses," she whispered to Theo as a particularly calculating feline stared at them. Theo laughed. "That's just Mittens being a cat. They all do that." Later, Pella's research expanded to pet stores, veterinary clinics, and dog parks. Each location more mind-boggling than the last. Humans not only lived with these creatures but spent considerable resources on their health, entertainment, and comfort. Most disturbing of all was her discovery in the genetic archives. But humans hadn't merely tamed these animals, they had systematically altered them through selective breeding over thousands of years. "You took one of the most efficient pack hunters on your planet, wolves, and deliberately modified them into hundreds of different forms?" she asked Theo, her voice rising to a panicked squeak as she examined imagery of everything from Great Danes to Chihuahuas. "Pretty much," Theo shrugged, scratching his golden retriever behind the ears. "Cool, right?" Pella's appendages trembled as she composed her report. The implications were staggering. Any species that could look at a wolf and think I can make this better by making it my friend was either incredibly foolish or terrifyingly powerful. Or perhaps, most unsettling of all, both simultaneously. The Grand Council chamber buzzed with anxious chatter. Representatives from over 200 species had assembled for this emergency session, an unprecedented gathering not seen since the Proxima Centauri conflict. Dr. Pella Nix stood at the central podium, her research materials projected onto the massive display dome above. Ambassador Lorax fidgeted nervously beside her. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," Pella began, "my 3-month investigation of human-predator relationships has yielded findings that challenge our fundamental understanding of sentient behavior." The holographic display shifted to show a human child embracing a massive canine nearly twice its size. Humans not only tolerate these apex predators in their dwellings, they form emotional bonds with them. They call this love. Representative Zoll of the Myriad Hive clicked his mandibles in obvious distress. "This cannot be natural. Do they enslave these creatures using neural technology?" "No," Pella replied. "The attachment appears to be mutual. Through a process they call domestication, humans have selectively bred these animals for companionship over thousands of generations." Admiral Turan, the stern military leader of the Volox Imperium, rose from his seat. His species had evolved from prey animals, and his long ears twitched with obvious agitation. "The implications are clear," he growled. "Any species capable of manipulating apex predators for companionship must be viewed as potentially dangerous and wildly unpredictable. I formally recommend immediate quarantine protocols for the Sol system." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "Before we vote," Pella interrupted, "you should view the complete evidence." The display shifted to a series of video recordings, a human rescuing a dog from rushing water, an elderly woman sharing her food with a purring cat, a blind man being guided by a specially trained canine, a child sleeping peacefully surrounded by protective pets. Most revealing, Pella continued, is how these relationships transform both species. The predators show reduced aggression, increased emotional intelligence, and remarkable loyalty. The humans demonstrate heightened empathy, reduced stress levels, and improved social bonding. Admiral Turan snorted dismissively. Next, you'll show us humans cuddling with explosive devices, calling them friends. This behavior indicates dangerous mental instability. Council leader Mev Tara raised her appendages for silence. The question before us is clear. Do these strange predator relationships indicate that humans pose a threat to galactic stability? Should Earth be placed under indefinite quarantine until we better understand them? Perhaps, offered Ambassador Lorax reluctantly, we're asking the wrong question. The real question is, what does it say about a species that can make friends with creatures evolved to kill them? The chamber erupted into heated debate. Some representatives insisted that humanity's peculiar habits made them unpredictable allies at best, dangerous enemies at worst. Others argued that any species capable of turning natural enemies into loyal companions might possess unique diplomatic skills valuable to the galactic community. As the arguments intensified, the holographic display continued cycling through images of humans and their beloved predators, playing together in complete harmony. 6 months after the contentious council debate, Ambassador Lorax Bendari found himself back on Earth. This time, he wasn't alone. A delegation of 12 representatives from key council species accompanied him, including the skeptical Admiral Turan. "I still believe this is an unnecessary risk," Turan muttered as their shuttle approached the landing zone. "Humans are clearly unhinged." Secretary Parker greeted them with the same warm smile as before. This time, Lorax noted with mild discomfort, she had brought not one but 3 pets, Max the dog, plus something called a cat, and a colorful parrot perched on her shoulder. "Welcome back to Earth. We've prepared a special demonstration of human-animal partnerships," Parker announced. Over the next 3 days, the delegation witnessed scenarios that challenged their deepest assumptions. They observed search and rescue dogs locating survivors in simulated disaster zones. They watched therapy animals calming traumatized children. They saw guide animals assisting humans with disabilities, and working animals helping with tasks from herding to hunting. Impressive, but these are all practical applications, Admiral Turan noted dismissively. Still doesn't explain the emotional attachment. As if the universe itself wished to answer him, alarms blared across the facility. Emergency lights flashed as an announcement echoed through the complex, "Fire detected in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately." The delegation was quickly ushered toward safety, but as they reached the exit, one of their human guides suddenly stopped. "The shelter animals. They're in Sector 8. Without hesitation, the human sprinted toward the danger, not away from it. "Is he mentally defective?" gasped Representative Zoll. "Why would he risk his life for replaceable animals?" Secretary Parker was already mobilizing emergency responders. "Because they're not just animals to us. They're family." The aliens watched in stunned silence as multiple humans rushed into the smoke-filled building, emerging minutes later with cages and carriers of frightened creatures. Most shocking of all was when Max, the dog who had so terrified Lorax during first contact, broke free from his handler and bolted into the building. He returned dragging a human rescuer who had collapsed from smoke inhalation. "The predator saved the human," Admiral Turan whispered, his worldview visibly crumbling. Later, as emergency crews contained the fire, Lorax found himself sitting beside a soot-covered human veterinarian who was treating a singed cat. "I don't understand," Lorax admitted. "You could have died." The vet smiled wearily. "That's the deal we made, thousands of years ago. We protect each other. That's what friends do." On the return journey to galactic space, the delegation was unusually quiet. Finally, Admiral Turan broke the silence. "We've been looking at this backward," he said. "Any species that can turn apex predators into allies, that can create mutual devotion with natural enemies, imagine what they could do with potential friends." Lorax nodded, remembering the sight of humans rushing into danger for creatures not even of their own kind. The quarantine proposal is withdrawn, Turan continued. I'll recommend immediate diplomatic relations instead. A species that can befriend the dangerous might be exactly what our divided galaxy needs. As their ship accelerated into hyperspace, Lorax found himself wondering if somewhere in the vast cosmos, there existed any force more powerful than a human's capacity for friendship.